Health Watch is presented by UMass Memorial Healthcare. Here, caring for you.
Doctor, what causes heart attacks?
Our current thinking about what causes heart attacks is it's the culmination of a process which begins with cholesterol that builds up in the lining of the artery, and that sometimes can form a little blister on the inner surface of the artery, and that for some reason the lining of that blister ruptures. The body tries to heal that by forming a blood clot, and that blood clot ends up choking off blood flow to the heart muscle. This is a magnetic resonance imaging study of a normal heart. So what you're seeing here is the left ventricle, that's the main pumping chamber, and you're seeing that there's nice symmetrical squeezing of the walls every time the heart beats. This is another MRI examination of the heart in someone who has suffered a traditional heart attack with heart muscle damage. And what you see here is the left ventricle, main pumping chamber. The top part of the heart is actually squeezing quite normally, but when you get to the mid portion and toward the tip of the heart, you see that these walls are not squeezing normally. And this heart muscle is damaged, and it's damaged because the artery supplying it was choked off by a blood clot. The dark gray is the muscle of the ventricle. The white is blood that's sitting in the heart chamber. And so every time the heart squeezes, blood is being forced out. So this is the heart muscle here. This white matter here is fluid that's collected around the sac of the heart.
How about breast cancer or lung cancer, since they're close to the heart?
We don't think that those actually directly cause heart attacks, breast cancer or lung cancer. They are close to the heart, like you say, but we don't think that those actually cause heart attack the way I described the heart attack to begin with.
Is it true that after a big meal like Thanksgiving, people tend to have more heart attacks?
The answer to that question is people can get into trouble after having really big meals. Most of the time, though, it has to do with the amount of sodium that's in food, which for people who have heart failure to begin with can exacerbate the heart failure. And so commonly after the holidays, we see patients coming into the emergency room with acute heart failure that we think has resulted from overdoing it. Too much salt, too much food.
Studies have shown that both intense anger and grief can cause heart attacks. Is this true?
We actually have some research data on this now. There have been a couple of studies that have looked into that very question. And it turns out that people suffering heart attacks, many of them beforehand had either intense physical exertion, unusual amount of physical exertion, or had an episode where they were quite angry and there was intense emotion.
What are the other lesser known causes of heart attacks?
One phenomenon that we've been very interested in here at UMass Memorial is this broken heart syndrome, which is something that seems to afflict older women, women in their 60s and 70s predominantly. About 90% of people with this broken heart syndrome are women. And it's a situation where people present with chest pain or shortness of breath, and for all the world look like they're having an acute heart attack. But in fact, after a period of time, the heart muscle comes back to normal. And they don't have significant coronary disease. Often we find that there was either an emotional trigger to this episode or a physical trigger. They were sick with something, pneumonia, chronic lung disease, exacerbation.
Are there any other lesser known causes?
With the new imaging techniques we have, CT, MRI, we're finding that a number of patients, and again it tends to be women, are showing up with heart attacks. We assume they have coronary disease, but in fact they don't have coronary disease. Sometimes it's spasm of one of the arteries. It just chokes off for no reason in particular. Sometimes it's a blood clot that travels from the heart down into the coronary artery.